Hey y'all, welcome to Peyton Energetics. I'm Peyton, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the star races, and in particular, about one of the races that we as humans don't have a lot of contact with, but that, in my opinion, is one of the most fascinating star races out there, and that is the feline beings. So when we talk about the feline beings, this is a star race that most humans don't know a whole lot about. They tend to be very mysterious, to not have a whole lot of contact with us here on Earth. But as we are now on the verge of open contact, as y'all know, we entered the open contact window in January of 2023. And what that means is we are getting closer by the day to meeting our star family in person, which is super exciting for those of us in the spiritual community. And it prompted the Pleiadians to think that it was time to start sharing some more information about some of those star races that we don't know quite as much about. Because we are pretty familiar with a lot of the benevolent races by this time. We know all about the Pleiadians, we know about the Sirians, the Arcturians, even the Orions and the Andromedans. But one of the races that is kind of mysterious, that we just don't get a lot of information on, is the feline beings. So today, the Pleiadians are going to dive in and tell us a little bit about this fascinating and mysterious race of beings. They're going to tell us a little bit about where they come from, what their involvement is with Earth, and a little bit about their civilization, and just what the felines are known for. So that is what we are going to be talking about in today's video. Now, when we talk about the feline beings, we have to go back to the first chapter of our galactic history. And according to the Pleiadians, the felines are one of the key players in our galactic history. So as the story goes, when our galaxy was first created, there were two original seed races. Two races that kicked off the entire game. And one of those was what the guides refer to as the avian beings, and the other was the felines. Now, according to the Pleiadians, the felines were invited into our galaxy by the founders to start to create life in our galaxy. And according to the story, the feline beings actually came from another universe where they had completed the incarnation cycle in their universe. And so they came here to start the process off in the Milky Way galaxy. So the feline beings become key parts of our galactic history. Now, as the Pleiadians tell the story, the feline beings originally were brought into what we know of as the Lyran star system, which, as y'all know, is where we are told human consciousness in our galaxy originated. So the feline beings set up shop in the Lyran constellation. And when they entered our galaxy originally, the guides say that they did so in what we know of as etheric form. And what that means is they weren't actually what we would consider to be physical beings at this point. So what happened was they began to slowly drop or step down their vibrations, bringing themselves into greater and greater physical form, greater and greater density. And the guides tell us that the feline beings were known for being master geneticists. So you can kind of see why the founders might have tapped them to start populating or seeding our brand new galaxy. So the feline beings started to drop themselves down in density, joining more and more of a physical form. And the guides tell us that these original feline beings were actually the creators of the humanoid form in the galaxy. So according to our galactic history, it is the feline beings who created humanoid form throughout the galaxy. They are where it all started. And the Pleiadians tell us that if we were to put this in linear time, which of course, as humans, we always do, that this would have happened about 8 million years ago. So this is kind of where our whole galactic history starts. It's with these fascinating feline beings. Now, as you guys probably know the story, because you're up to speed on your galactic history, the guides tell us that what then scattered life throughout our galaxy was the terrible, terrible galactic wars that took place in the Lyran star system. So we are told that it was the ancient reptilians who attacked the Lyran star system and scattered the original Lyrans, both the humanoids and the feline beings, throughout the galaxy. So the guides tell us that this is what populated most of our galaxy, was as a result of these absolutely devastating galactic wars. So the Lyran beings, both the feline and the humanoids, spread throughout the galaxy. And the guides tell us that there are feline beings all throughout the galaxy. They are a very populous group, although we as humans don't have much contact with them. But the guides tell us that there are feline beings everywhere throughout the galaxy. And some of the areas that we know there to be particularly large colonies of feline beings are in the Sirian system, in the Cassiopean system, and there's even felines in the Pleiadian system. Now, the guides talk about the feline beings as being some of the oldest souls in the galaxy, which makes sense when you think about it if they were the seed race in the galaxy. Of course, it makes sense that they are considered to be some of the most ancient souls, some of the most evolved races in the galaxy. And although the guides describe the current day feline beings as being extremely highly evolved, very advanced, and very loving and benevolent, the guides are quick to point out that that was not always the case. So the Pleiadians say that during the course of their evolution and development, the felines were troublemakers for a while. So they said they were quite fearsome, and they were causing quite a bit of trouble throughout the galaxy in their own right. And of course, we like to attribute that to the reptilians, but the Pleiadians like to point out that even the felines went through quite a period in their own growth process where they were causing a little bit of trouble themselves. So the Pleiadians always describe the feline beings as being quite fearsome. So this is a race that is known to be a warrior race. But the guides say that they are now so highly evolved that they are quite loving and benevolent. According to the Pleiadians, this is a race that is loved and respected by all members of the galactic family. But they did have those teenage years when they were causing some trouble and were known to be quite, the word that always comes up is fearsome. So this is something that is just good to know about the evolution of the feline races. But now they are held up as one of the most advanced and most respected members of our galactic family. So the guides like to point out that while the felines are now quite loving and benevolent to all races, that they are not a race to be trifled with. So the feline beings are warriors at heart, and they're one of the races that the guides like to point to as an example of one of the races that even the reptilians are afraid of. So that just gives you a sense of how powerful the feline beings were and are, that even the reptilians don't mess with them. And as we mentioned earlier, the Pleiadians like to point out that there are quite a lot of feline beings throughout the galaxy. This is a race that is very populous, has a lot of members. There are felines everywhere. It's just a race that we on Earth don't have much contact with, which is one of the reasons why most of us don't know a whole lot about the feline races. But for me, they are one of the most fascinating races out there, and I hope that we'll have more contact with them as we move deeper into the window for open contact. Now, when the Pleiadians talk about the feline races, they tend to focus on what they refer to as the dominant feline race. Because with all star races, as we've been talking about in these videos, there are countless species, countless races at all levels of evolution and development. So when the guides talk to us about a particular star race, they tend to focus on the members of that race that are most relevant to us here on Earth. So for the feline races, the guides like to focus on what they call the dominant feline race. So this is the race that is most highly evolved, most advanced, and sometimes this race is referred to as the Irma. That is a term that the Pleiadians often use for them. But every star race has their own terminology. So you may hear these beings going by other names depending on what star race you're talking to. So the Irma is one term that is sometimes used for the dominant feline race in the galaxy. And the guides like to describe them as giant lions and tigers on 2 feet. And just take a moment and picture that. I would kind of love to see that. And they are said to be extremely, extremely loving and very benevolent, very welcoming to all other races, very accommodating, and they're very willing to interact with all of the star races, which is one of the reasons why they have a reputation in the galactic community as being beloved by all. Now, according to the Pleiadians, the feline races, and we're going to focus right now on the dominant feline race, is, according to the guides, originally from the Vegan star system, which, as you all know from previous videos, is in the Lyran constellation. So the guides tell us that the felines originate from the Lyran star system, of course, but from the Vegan star system in particular. And the felines are said to be very flashy. So according to the guides, the felines love pomp and circumstance. So they are described as being very almost military in appearance and presentation. So they are said to be very organized, very regimented, and you can see that warrior energy, because the word warrior is always one that is at the top of the list when we talk about the dominant feline species. So they are said to be just quite impressive to see and to interact with. Now, the guides also say that they love decoration. So they are often portrayed as wearing fancy robes, a lot of embellishment, a lot of decoration. So just picture it. A fancy blinged out lion. I don't know, sign me up. It sounds absolutely fascinating. So they are known for their love of the dramatic. They like to put on a show. Now, something else about the felines is the guides tell us that their societies are structured very much like what we see in most advanced star civilizations. So the guides say that the felines use the same type of, let's call it government, although that word doesn't really do it justice, the same form of social organization. And this is often referred to in the galactic community as holographic government. And we have chatted about that in previous videos, so I won't go back over what that is. But the felines are said to use the same type of general social structure that most of the other advanced races use. And when the guides talk about the feline beings and what it's like to interact with them, they say that they are known for being very benevolent, very loving, very generous with all of the star races. And they are also known as being incredibly intelligent. So they are known for their intelligence. And like most advanced races, they are known for being telepathic. So this is a race that primarily communicates using telepathy. And as we have mentioned a couple times, they are known as warriors. So the guides always point out that although this is a race of being that is incredibly advanced and evolved, very loving, very generous, that they are warriors at heart. As the Pleiadians like to say, they are apex predators. So this is a race that, while beloved by all the galactic family, is not to be trifled with. So they are taken very, very seriously in the galactic family. They are very respected and are really just esteemed members of the galactic community. And finally, when we talk about the star races, I always like to have the guides describe the ships that these races use, because as we know, we are going to be seeing them in our skies any day now. It's already underway. And it's good for us to have an idea of the different types of craft that we may be seeing so that we can start to associate it with who is in our skies. So the guides talk about the craft of the feline beings, and like most advanced races, they don't need craft to travel. So when we are talking about the craft of a particular race, we are talking about those members that are still quasi-physical and have a use for traveling by vehicle, as opposed to being able to project themselves wherever they want to go. So according to the guides, the felines are known to have very distinctive looking craft or ships. And the guides describe their ships as looking like the letter U. So U-shaped craft is often attributed to the feline races. And that's kind of good to know, because that is not a ship shape that we hear of very often. So the Pleiadians like us to know what to look out for, to just know what members of our galactic family are starting to join us around the Earth plane. So that is a little summary of the feline beings. And this is one of the most fascinating races, and one of the ones I personally can't wait to know more about. But it's also a race that doesn't interact with us much here on Earth. So this is not one of the races that we will see as often as we see some of the other star races, like the Pleiadians and the Sirians. But it is good to know more about them. It's just good to know who we are going to be rejoining as we, as humans, rejoin our galactic family. And the felines are one of the more fascinating and mysterious members of our galactic family. So let me know in the comments below, what other star race do you want to know about? Drop that in the comment box below. And while you're down there, don't forget, hit the subscribe button and the like button if you haven't done that yet. I'll see you soon. Bye.